Milagros, or miracles in English, are all around us. Every day, we see them, we hear them, babies' laughter, babies being born, all of it, it's a miracle. The wind blows, it's a miracle. Sometimes we carry those miracles with us from one home to the next, from one country to the new country, but they stay with us. Our next storyteller will tell you all about them. Please welcome Michelle.
So my daughter is 13. But when she was 3 years old, we were packing up our little apartment to go to San Diego for winter break. I'm from San Diego. I was raised along the San Diego-Tijuana border. It's where I find home. It's where my siblings are. It's where my parents are buried. And so as we're rushing that afternoon to get everything in the car, if you have a toddler, you know how hard it is. And I'm putting everything, and I said, Mija, hurry up. We got to go home. She stopped, and she looked up at me, and she said, but Mommy, we are home. And it was in that moment that I realized that I hadn't figured out how to create home. And I had to ask myself, well, how do you create community? How do you create a home far away from the people that created you, where you find a sense of self, right? You see, when I moved to Arizona 14 years ago this month, I was 3 months pregnant, and I was alone, and was embarking on a brand new journey. I had finished my PhD 3 months before. It was a good party. Just kidding. And I decided that, despite this terrifying idea of moving to a city where I knew nobody, that I had to go. And so I was going to start a new position as a faculty member at the university and up in Phoenix, and I was there to do this, right? However, everyone around me was excited about starting the new semester and about preparing their classes, and all I could think about was the fact that I was about to bring a child into the world and I had nobody around me to help me. So I didn't tell anybody, right? So the next couple months, I went into my office, I put the books in my shelves, I prepared my syllabi, and I went there and I presented publicly. And then I would come home to my empty apartment and I would sit on the floor in the kitchen and just sob. I was so scared. And then I would think, maybe it's a good thing that my family wasn't close by so that they wouldn't hear me crying. I also bought a TV. I hadn't owned a TV in 10 years. Like, who does watch television when you're in grad school and when you're trying to organize and change the world, right? So I learned about DVR, which is now completely obsolete, right? But at the time, you could record shows and then watch them and fast forward to the commercials. So this is how I spent my evenings. I would watch TV shows. Everybody Loves Raymond. I think I watched all the seasons. Friends. I hadn't ever watched Friends. I watched all the Friends. American Idol. American's Next Top Model. I watched them all just on my couch. And then one day after class, I was approached by a student, and she comes up to me and she said, Dr. Téllez, are you expecting? No, I don't know. Why are you asking? What do you mean? I literally did that. And I said, that's a very personal question. So I realized I needed to start telling people that I was 5 months pregnant. So I went to my chair, my boss. And then, of course, this is before Facebook, right? So it's not like you can make an announcement like, I'm having a baby, people. You had to call people or maybe email them, but then they respond individually to you. And I don't think I've ever heard people tell me so often, like, I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. And I was like, yeah. Well, you have sex. This happens. So people knew, and I was supported by my family and friends, but I still had to pretend that I was okay. And I had to pretend that maybe my daughter's father would come around. And I had to pretend that I was moving forward in this life that I it was fully embracing. And but I was really, really scared, right? I didn't go to any birthing classes because I was really embarrassed to go to a class by myself. I didn't want to show up and have to tell more stories. I didn't want to have to explain why I didn't have somebody with me to help me through that labor. I realized I needed to hire a doula because I couldn't do it by myself. So I found an amazing doula. And then one morning in February, I woke up at 5 a.m. and my water broke. So I got up and I decided I needed a shower. And then I really wanted some Mexican hot chocolate. So I went into my kitchen, and as the waves of contractions came, I made myself some chocolate. And then I drank my chocolate, and it was really good. And then I went into the living room, and I sat on my birthing ball, and I bounced, and I did a lot of yoga, and I walked around the courtyard of my apartment building, and I came back in, and I did this for several hours until finally around 11, I was taken to the birthing center. And where my doula met me, and the midwife almost didn't arrive on time because my baby was coming so fast. I had labored pretty much on my own at home. But she came 2 hours later. My daughter was born. And that first moment was amazing, right? That moment of the first sight, everything changes for you, right? That first year was beautiful, exhausting, beautiful, exhausting. I don't think I would have eaten had it not been for Trader Joe's and all the frozen food aisle. And because that's all I could do was to, open up the microwave, put a frozen tamale in there, nobody get mad at me, and eat the tamal, and then, care for my infant. I didn't get any time off at the university, 2 weeks. And so I was able to try to tie together, this support system of family who would come from California for a week, my comadre, my sister, my mom, my best friend, and that's how I made it through. So when my daughter that day asked me, but mommy, this is home. It reminded me of why or how I am to create community far away from home. And it made me think about my own mother, who is from a little town in Mexico called Tomatlan. And she moved to this country not knowing anybody, meeting my father, and creating family here, right? And she didn't have her mother with her, right? She didn't have her siblings with her. But she taught us our cultura. She taught us our language. She taught us, how to make community, how to find home away from home, right? And she reminded me, when I was becoming too Americanized. No, te estás agringando. That's what she would say to me, right? You're becoming too gringa. And so I had to go back to those lessons from my mother in the raising of my daughter, right? And they were always there. I just didn't know how to make those connections, right? So one part of the story that I hadn't told you is that in those months, right, before I moved to Arizona, when I found out I was pregnant, I was surprised and excited. And when a few weeks into the pregnancy, one afternoon, I realized I was bleeding. And so I called my doctor and I said, I'm bleeding and this is happening and it's not stopping. And what do I need to do? And my doctor was like, Michelle, it's really hard to get pregnant and it's really hard to stay pregnant. It sounds like you're having a miscarriage. I can't do anything about it right now. You're going to have to just wait it out, and I'm going to make an appointment with you for the OBGYN. You're going to go in and you will make sure that everything came out. I'm so sorry. So I grieved, I cried, I did all the things you're not supposed to do when you're pregnant, like drink coffee and unpasteurized cheese. And 2 weeks into it, I went into the doctor's office, and when they put the ultrasound wand and they put the glob all over your belly and they put it on my belly, immediately you heard boom, ba boom, ba boom. You have a baby in there. And I was like, what? How? What? And so when she showed me the image, I had been pregnant with twins. And so one of the babies was a big, it looked like a bomb, right? Like just a bread bomb. And this other little baby was there beating. And so I had to go back every week. I was like, I'm moving to Arizona. I'm starting a new job. This is, not the ideal. And she said, well, let's just have you come in every week and we'll see how things are going. So that last week when I was 12 weeks pregnant and I went in to see how I was doing, the doctor walks in. She's like, well, let's see how this miracle baby is doing. And she said, you're doing really great. Good luck. So off I went to Arizona. And that morning in February that I was telling you about was also, the date was February 20th, right? Which was a date 12 years prior that my father had suddenly passed away, right? And so to the date, right? And these are the kind of things that I don't think can be planned, right? And all the unplanning, the universe tells you what's supposed to be planned. And so on the date that my father died, that brought immeasurable grief and sadness, my daughter was born. And I named her Milagro, which means miracles in Spanish. And I think that sometimes the milagro comes to find you and to tell you where you're going to find home. Thank you very much.